Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be discussing how long you should sleep to maximize your muscle growth and recovery. So we're going to be basically looking at scientific research papers, PubMed papers, etc., on the correlation between sleep and muscle recovery. I really love this image of Jay Cutler. It's so funny. I don't know. He's just out of it. But anyway, let's get right into it. So how long should you sleep? I recommend about 7 to 9 hours of sleep, 7 being the absolute bare minimum you have to get, right? Because after you drop down below 7, you're going to wind up experiencing some detrimental effects from sleep deprivation. And, you can be like, oh, well, 5 hours of sleep is where you build sleep deprivation. But that's not where the negative effects start at. Anything less than 7, and you're not getting the optimal recovery rates that you would be if you're getting, 8, which I recommend personally. 8.5 is what you really need to be aiming for. And, if you fall short of that, hit 8, hit 7.5, you're still in the ballpark on nights you may have to run an hour later into your nightly routine, but it's not like you're getting 5 hours of sleep. With 9 hours being more genetic, if you really require more sleep, you're going to be at that 9 hour range, to really perform as optimally as possible. And as well as like really intense athletes, like elite level athletes. So, I mean, if you consider yourself to be an elite athlete, you may be needing more than 8 hours of sleep. But from all the research papers I went over and taking into account the National Sleep Association's recommendations, I believe 7 hours is a minimum, because after you drop below that, you're having a rapid increase in negative impacts from the reduced sleep. But like I said, recommend 8.5 hours for optimizing your muscle growth and recovery. Everyone's different. Some people may claim they don't require as much sleep. Yeah, I slept 5 hours this night. Well, I slept 4, it's always a competition. But the people that are discussing that are not the ones that are killing themselves in the gym. And, it's not really a big deal to them. And yeah, they may be able to wake up and feel awake and feel like they're functioning properly. But, you're increasing your health risk for disease. And if you are trying to, have progress in the gym, have progress with your diet, you're hindering yourself and you're losing out on what you could be achieving. So anyway, it's detrimental to your health and will obviously just kill your max potential for optimized muscle growth. We'll get onto the negative impacts. Let's really dive into them, right? So I'm gonna list these bullets off, and then I'll go into each and every single one of them. And I got a few more after this, but it's gonna be pretty. I'm gonna do this pretty quick. So if you want to skip around, there's gonna be chapters. But anyway, let's get right into it. So negative impacts from reduced sleep include reduced reaction time and accuracy, increased chance of injury, lack of GH production, increased catabolic and reduced anabolic hormones, which is mostly testosterone, and then increased cortisol. And you may be looking at that like, holy fuck, that's a lot of shit, right? And it is. So why should you change how much you sleep? Just look at this list and look at the next list I'm about to show. If you want to have progress, you got to change how much you're sleeping if you're getting anything less than 7. So let's get into some studies. I will link all the resources at the end of the video. They'll also be in the description, so you guys can look at the papers yourself. So in one of the studies, a single night of 5 hours of sleep in tennis players was associated with a decrease in serving accuracy of up to 53% compared with after a normal night's sleep. A study of 29 adolescent student athletes found decreased sleep time on weekdays than weekends with accumulated sleep debt throughout the week, and it was associated with worsening reaction times by the end of the week. On another study, college-age males, basketball players, they basically wanted to increase their accuracy, and they had one sleep group of 6.5 hours of sleep and 8.5 hours of sleep per night over a 5 to 7 week period of time. And would you believe that the group that slept more had a 9% increase in free throw accuracy and a 9.2 increase in 3-point field goal average. I don't know why I said field goal, but anyway, 3-point average percentage. And they also had significant improvements in psychomotor vigilant tasks. So they were given tasks to also just assess, performance. And there's a big correlation between how accurate you are and how much time you're sleeping. And this is very important for, as I said, like tennis, basketball, even anything that involves you having to be quick, not only in the thinking and planning out in the playing field, but boxing. I mean, anything that's martial arts related, having to block, everything requires on accuracy and reaction time. And another study in college tennis players, 1.6 hour sleep extension, where they increased their probably 8.5 hour sleep, if I remember correctly, by almost like 10 hours. It was associated with a 36% to 41% increase in serving accuracy. So the more sleep you get, the better you'll have as far as the better accuracy you'll have and reaction time. A study of middle school and high school athletes, I'm going to butcher this, Milski, that's probably how you pronounce it. Milski found that those individuals who slept less than 8 hours per night on average were 70% more likely to report an injury than those who slept 8 hours. In addition, a recent study of about 500 adolescent athletes from 16 different individual team sports found that increased training load and decreased self-reported sleep duration was independently associated with an increased risk of injury. In fact, the greatest risk for injury resulted when training load increased and sleep duration decreased simultaneously. You see that a lot in training camps. When you go out somewhere, you're not really getting good sleep, and you're really pushing yourself to the limit. But this basically says the less you sleep, the greater the chance for injury, and it's directly correlated. So you have a group that's sleeping 5.5 hours and a group that's sleeping 8.5 hours. The 8.5 hour group is going to be less likely to report injuries. And the reason I think this is the case is because your body does not have enough time to properly repair itself. So it keeps on getting damaged until you finally have an injury. Also, the increased injury rate could be from, if the accuracy and the motor skills are a little, impaired from sleep deprivation, you're going to wind up having falls or, going for the ball and missing it, and then you'll wind up injuring yourself, and it can just be as simple as just stepping wrong. So lack of GH production, which for those that don't know is the growth hormone, and I'm pretty sure this is the growth hormone 1 that is released during sleep. But during sleep, you release 75% of your growth hormone. So when you do not sleep long enough, you are missing out on 75% of the growth hormone you could be giving your body. And this is big, guys, because this is what helps repair those damaged muscles. Also, when you don't sleep, you get more stress, your cortisol goes up. So your cortisol is increased the more sleep that you attain, and cortisol interferes with testosterone levels. So it also, even if it doesn't bring down your test levels by a dramatic amount, it's going to prevent it from binding, like your free test levels, from doing what it could be doing for your body, which is really helping you maximize your muscle growth and recovery. So if that wasn't bad enough, let's go on to the next page of negative impacts from reduced sleep. So on this one, I'm going to list them off again. You have decreased activity of protein synthesis pathways, increased activity of degradation pathways, decreased muscle strength, increased risk of obesity, increased inflammation, increased risk of disease such as heart disease, high blood pressure, etc. So anyway, let's get into delving into what this actually means. So as your sleep debt accumulates over time from you not getting enough sleep, the activity of protein synthesis pathways and increased activity of degradation pathways all favor the loss of muscle mass and thus hinder, your muscle recovery, especially after damage-induced exercise or injuries, and it really just promotes muscle atrophy. So it's negative all the way around. Poor sleep quality and short sleep duration are associated with an increased risk for muscle mass reduction. Like I just said, one of the studies aimed to investigate the association between sleep quality and duration and muscle strength in university students. Men with shorter sleep duration of less than 6 hours had poorer muscle strength than that of men who slept for 7 to 8 hours. And over 8 hours was, accounted for, but it wasn't such a significant increase over 8 hours. So that's why I say you need to aim for 8.5, because even if your sleep quality is shit, the extra 30 minutes might help make that up if you didn't have a good night's rest, Anyway, let's continue. And that's also muscle strength. That's different. So this is like your optimal output. So if you're strength training, like lifting weights, you're not going to be able to lift as much as if you got a proper night's rest. So individuals who regularly slept less than 7 hours per night were more likely to have higher average body mass indexes and develop obesity than those who slept more. Studies showed that experimental sleep restriction was associated with increased levels of ghrelin, salt retention, and inflammatory markers, as well as decreased levels of leptin and insulin sensitivity. So basically what this means is every night, if you sleep for less than 7 hours, that's why I said 7 hours is the minimum. And you really need to shoot, if you're trying to get 7 hours, shoot for 7.5. Give yourself a little bit of work away, right? Anyway, you have a higher average body mass, and I'll go into another study which also correlates back into this in a little bit, help shed some more light on this. But one of the reasons is you have increased levels of ghrelin, it makes you want to eat more. You have salt retention, which is going to make you hold water, make you swell up more, and show that on the scale. And one of the most concerning things, in my opinion, is the inflammatory markers. That is insane. So you have increased inflammation. That means that not only is your body not able to continue the recovery process, which is hindering your muscle growth and recovery, but the inflammatory markers is an indicator that, if you continue this way of sleeping less and being sleep deprived, you'll probably develop like a disease such as, heart disease, or wind up you could even be diabetic, and that's from the insulin sensitivity. Also, some other studies have shown association between short sleep durations and diabetes, like I just said, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and mortality. One study with a group sleeping for 5 hours and another group sleeping for 7 showed that the 5-hour group had a 15% chance increase for mortality. Let me put that in perspective for you. So I'm putting my phone here, right? Let's say the average lifespan, which is around like 72. Let's just put 70, right? So let's times that by 15%. The group that's sleeping for 5 hours has an increased chance to die 10.5 years earlier. 10.5 years earlier. Think about what you could do in 10.5 years, right? Everybody wants to live as long as they can. But everybody wants to go out and party, wants to drink, have fun. Think about what the long-term effects would be. Have fun in your 20s, obviously. Have fun in your 30s. Have fun throughout your life. But do so moderately. And don't be excessive with it, because you will eventually pay for it one way or the other. All right, let's move on. So this is the major study, and it is getting outdated. It is from 2010. But this study was absolutely insane on the percentages. And you see this in a lot of other videos, the same study being brought back up. So one group slept for 5.5 hours while the other group slept for 8.5 hours. The 5.5 hour group had a 55% increase in fat retention, meaning the 8.5 hour group lost 55% more fat. 55% more fat was lost with 8.5 hours of sleep. Absolutely absurd. And if that's not crazy enough, for the 5.5 hour group, they had 60% more muscle loss than the group that slept for 8.5 hours. So by sleeping for 5.5 hours, you are holding on to 55% more fat and losing 60% more muscle than what you would be if you were sleeping for 8.5 hours. So for everybody out there that's trying to really bodybuilding, powerlifting, whatever it may be, even if you're just a CrossFitter, whatever you're doing in the gym, if you're not getting enough sleep, you're really hindering yourself, and that it may be why you're not seeing the results that you want to see, and especially why your results are coming in so much slower than maybe your gym partner, right? Maybe your gym partner has a really good sleep routine and is getting his 8.5 hours, and you're over here gaming, studying because you didn't study earlier, for whatever test is coming up. And I know it's really hard for college students, and I understand that life gets in the way. Sometimes you can't always get sleep, right? But for the majority of the time, you need to be sleeping as much as you can and scheduling out your day. So manage your time wisely, set up your day, and we're going to go into the next one. What about naps? For those that can't get, maybe 5 hours to 7 hours of sleep every night, what about naps? Well, naps should be avoided during late day and evening, and that's because when you sleep in the late day and in the evening, you are pushing your natural melatonin secretion back. you are giving your body a chance to re-energize in a way to the point where it's not going to want to go to sleep when it's time to go to sleep again. So you're messing up your sleep hygiene, and we'll get into that in the next one. Naps are relatively unclear in a lot of the research that I looked at. Some say it's beneficial, some say it hurts you, but I think the majority of them can agree on sleep inertia being the cause for decreased performance outside of naps. So if you're sleep deprived and you're like, maybe I should nap for the gym, I recommend just go ahead. If you can, go through with it, go to the gym, and then if you wanted to nap, maybe if it's early enough, if it's in the evening, you might just have to try to stick it up. Naps are great. I love naps, but if you do have to take them, I recommend keeping them short. The longer you sleep, the more likely you are going to disrupt your rhythm as far as your natural sleep pattern. And the longer you sleep, the more you're probably going to have a little bit of sleep inertia. So keep that in mind. If you're thinking about napping before a game, before something big going on, keep in mind that sleep inertia can decrease your performance. And what I mean about good sleep hygiene, that means in the last hour you have before you need to be in sleep, you need to start closing everything down, making sure you're not watching a lot of having a lot of screen time, right? And it's really hard for a lot of people to not have screen time before bed. But I think what's the major culprit is not really the blue light, but if you're watching something, how many of you guys want to watch and continue watching something if you're interested in, right? So you're watching a show, very invested into it, and then you look over, you're like, shit, I should be asleep, right? Well, I'm going to watch one more episode, and that episode's 30, 50 minutes long. That's time you could have been sleeping, but instead you're watching something. And if you want that time to watch something, you're going to have to schedule it out to where you can watch that. At the bare minimum, 30 minutes of time to yourself before bed is beneficial. One of the reasons why you turn everything off and you're rolling around in bed and you can't fucking sleep and you're like, oh my God, I might as well just get back up, and you have all these thoughts going in your mind, is because that's the first time in that whole day, because you're so glued to your phone or other devices, that your brain is free to kind of mull over all the information you've got from that day. It's free to have ability to think for itself and have all these creative ideas. And that's why if you want to kind of daydream while you're laying down, that might help you also fall asleep. But to avoid those thoughts coming in, you have to have time throughout the day where you're not constantly absorbing information and having YouTube playing or something going on that you're audibly listening to or watching, because it's going to reduce because if you have something always going on or scrolling through TikTok, you're not going to have that time to mull over new information, retaining that new information, and then also have all these other ideas and stuff and be able to just creatively think, right? And that's why it always happens on the pillow when you lay down and everything's off. Other thing about good sleep hygiene is keeping your environment cozy, comfortable, and also a little bit cool. There's a lot of research into, you don't want to be hot or warm, because that's not going to help you sleep. So if you can, have your environment just a little bit cooler, and be sure it's dark. If you're scared of the dark, buy you a night light, whatever you got to do, but make it as dark as possible. It'll really increase your sleep quality. Also, don't leave the TV on, don't leave anything on. Like I just said, you don't need anything that's going to keep that brain really occupied or attentive on something that it wants to listen to, because it's going to keep you up longer. So anyway, building a good routine is mostly, it goes back into sleep hygiene. It's like, okay, 10:30 every night, I know I have enough time to get 8.5 hours of sleep, wake up, not be late for work, and have plenty of time in the morning where I'm not rushing. You do not want to be rushed in the morning. So this just goes into good scheduling, good time management, right? You want to have a set time where you can sleep almost every night. So 10:30 every night, weekends, whatever, you're in bed. You're in bed, right? And then you want to be asleep by 11, okay? So you get in bed at 10:30, turn everything off, lay there, roll around, and you're probably going to fall asleep about 11. And then you'll get your 8 hours of sleep, wake up about 9, and then get ready for work, be at work by 10:30, whatever your schedule is. That's just an example. And you do this every night, so that way, as you're building up to that last 30 minutes and it's about to hit 10:30, you're trying to wrap everything up, around 9:30 to 10. And then, you already had your shower, you're already ready for bed. So in 10:30, you just make your way to the bedroom, fall in bed. And that really just, it's dials down the night. You want to have a relaxing evening. Like right at the very end, you want it to be as relaxed as possible so you don't have increased cortisol and you're not really awake. I'm guilty of playing games sometime way later than I should be. And that's just going to increase my cortisol levels and really make me more awake when I'm playing these first-person shooter games before I'm supposed to go crawl in bed in the next 30 minutes, because that's the only time of the day that I've had for myself. And I understand that affects it. It's just, what do you want more? Do you want to play, a match of CSGO or Rainbow Six? Or do you want to maximize your muscle growth and recovery and get your ass in bed? So it just comes down to what you want to do. So here's my resources. Not too many. Not too much. It was a pretty quick video today. I enjoyed being able to inform you guys about the benefits of sleep. And I strongly encourage everybody that watches this, that is interested in maximizing their muscle growth and recovery, to incorporate more sleep and have a good, healthy sleep routine, and as well as sleep hygiene. And I hope that if you are not sleeping as much, that you will increase it, just because it does increase your mortality and risk for other diseases that you could get, such as heart disease and other things like that. So anyway, guys, I really appreciate you guys coming out. Hope you guys enjoyed the content today, and I'll see you in the next one.